Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are excited to have Dr. Susan Kavaler Adler joining us here. She's a clinical psychologist and psychoanalytic psychotherapist, and we're excited that she's here with us today, joining us from New York City. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Good to see you.
Pleasure having you here, and excited to get to talk to someone who practices psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, does couples therapy, and so much more. So we're going to get to know you today, obviously, and would love to talk more about, the work you're doing. But I always find it important that we tell everyone how we can contact you to start and get a little bit of your background. So let's tell us the website. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Oh, it's www.kavaleradler.com. So that's my two last names without the hyphen. KAVALERADLER@gmail.com. That's kavaleradler@gmail.com. For my website, my email is drkavaler@. I'm getting confused here. The website is www.kavaleradler.com, and the email is Dr. Kavaler Adler, DrKavalerAdler at gmail.com.
Amazing. Well, there's so much to you, and we could probably spend a whole show just on your background, but I want to talk about you as an author. I know you've written so many articles and books, but also to get to know where you went to school and what brought you to get into this field. So would you mind giving us a little bit of your background overview growing up, and how, we'll work our way up to present and how you got here?
Okay. All right. Well, I... First of all, I've been practicing since 1975. I'm a clinical psychologist, psychoanalyst, and psychoanalytic psychotherapist. I have monthly groups, and I do individual psychotherapy and psychoanalysis and some couples therapy. I got my doctorate in clinical psychology in 1974 from the Adelphi University, the Gordon Turner Institute. I was just 24 years old. And I got there through, and later I went on to psychoanalytic training and founded my own institute. I'm the executive director and founder of the Object Relations Institute for Psychotherapy and Psychoanalysis. And I teach online with the institute all the time, and I teach both supervision and theory classes. I have 7 published books and over 70 articles. Actually, right now, there's, aside from all my journal articles, there are some magazine articles online. There's one now featured in National Digest magazine on fear of success that is there on the website for the National Digest magazine, an interview and a somewhat lengthy article about all the intricacies of fear of success and creativity. So I've practiced, and I was originally in literature, and then when I was studying in Italy and my junior year abroad, when I was at Syracuse University as an undergraduate, they had a program over in Italy and Florence. And of course, I love Florence, learning about all the Renaissance history, art, and opera, and the language. So while I was there, I was friendly with a classmate from Barnard University, and she was telling me that I listened really well to her, and she thought I might consider being a clinical psychologist. I was in literature at the time, and I went back and I decided to take psychology courses, and very quickly I got into all of them, and I ended up doing a double honors major in literature and psychoanalysis. Literature and psychology. And later I did get an honorary doctorate in literature as well from a university. But I went straight into psychology for my career, and I did a doctorate at Adelphi University at the Gordon Derner Institute, which one of the two top programs in clinical psychology, that and NYU are the two top. So by the time I was 24, I got my PhD, and then, was practicing soon after. All these years in private practice, I did a little work in some hospitals originally, but then I built up my private practice. So that's part of how I got into it. Aside from the fact that one of my specialties is in mourning and loss and grieving, and how to open that up and stay with it and not to undercut it, and deal with the defenses against mourning and loss, whether it be because of a death or just separation or other losses. My father died when I was 9, and that influenced me towards the profundity of the mourning and grief process. So I've been able to help others with that. I also, two of my first books of the 7 published books were on well-known women artists and writers. And I've always written about the creative process as well as the mourning process. I've always had writing and creative process groups. I have currently a monthly writing group, and I've had many writing groups. So I work with specialties. I work with everything as a psychoanalyst, but I have specialties in mourning and loss and opening up blocks to creativity, and also issues about fear of success and fear of intimacy and all kinds of levels of fears and persecutory anxieties that people can have unconsciously. I work with the inner life, the internal world, and I work with dreams and fantasies. I work with dreams all the time. I help people to see that all the people in the dream, as well as the objects, are part of themselves, and sometimes part of themselves that consciously they might not want to own, but that they need to in order to be a whole person. So I help them understand what the unconscious is saying to them in dreams, as well as through their expression in sessions of their feelings and thoughts, and in general, and their fantasies, of course. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow. I mean, impressive. And I'm still sitting here on the website, and I urge everyone to do the same at kavaleradler.com. That's KAVALERADLER.com to find out more. And also, there's so much to talk about you as an author and a teacher and all you have done with over 40 years of experience in this field. And it's exciting to have someone with your expertise here on the show. And I want to thank you for that. For today, I know you have it narrowed down to a few things that you kind of wanted to focus on, right? As far as fear of success, fear of envy, fear of intimacy, and all finding one's individual voice. So do you want to kind of talk about this type of trauma maybe behind the fear of success? And let's get into this if you don't mind. Clearly, you're the expert. So where did you want to begin?
Well, let's see, fear. I want to say something about envy because people don't talk about it that much. And I did do an interview the other day which focused a lot on fear of success, but I'd like to say something today about the fear of envy that can be part of fear of success and other inhibitions in life in general, which can interfere with relationships and the creative process. And working with consciousness of envy, as well as in regrets, which I'll say something about. I have one of my books is on anatomy of regret. But once you make these things conscious, they don't sabotage you unconsciously. So that's what I help people with, to not be sabotaged by their unconscious instincts, fears, and envy, the projected envy into others where they fear being envied, as well as there is a lot of real envy in the world. So there's fear of real envy, but there's also the fear that comes up when someone unconsciously projects their own envy and outward and fears that others attacking them because of it, or putting them down and inhibiting them from their growth. So Envy is something that people often have a real difficult time with. It's different than jealousy, and people often don't understand that. I've also written about jealousy and envy, and jealousy is more about a fear in a relationship of three people, but envy is about just wanting what somebody else has or wanting to be something that someone else is without and not feeling when it's this unconscious envy that gets in the way and sabotages. It's usually a sense that the person doesn't feel they can have grow or develop towards having what the other person has, and that can get reacted to unconsciously with attacks on the other, and this inhibits the person in their cells when they're unconsciously attacking the other, and or they can take in envious attacks from others and attack themselves with that. So envy is in some ways even more profound than jealousy, but people often use the word jealousy when they're talking about envy. Envy is about wanting what somebody else has and wanting to destroy it if you feel you can't have it. But once it becomes conscious, it's just part of being human. And it's when it's unconscious that it's dangerous, where there are unconscious fantasies of destroying the other, and that inhibits the person, and they sabotage themselves when they have those unconscious fantasies of attacking the other. They actually inhibit themselves, and they undermine both love and creativity and capacities for love and creativity. So that's also related to fear of success, because if you're fearing envy or you're projecting the envy, or you're unconsciously feeling like in a despair that you can't have what you want, but and you feel destructive towards another for having it, or you fear someone doing that to you, all of that can work at an unconscious level to destroy opportunities and can inhibit and block love and creativity.
Wow. Well, let me also ask. I mean, so many people, around this time of year in particular, notice, I would assume there's a lot more depression, a lot more of us, reflecting, grieving, and trauma of people that we've lost and love in a sense, right? And during this time of year, do you see an uptick in people that need some help and need therapy?
Um, I don't know. There are different kinds times of the year that usually right after the summer or sometimes around the holidays. Yes, there is some uptick because people are afraid of sometimes of hostility. I'm talking about unconscious hostility being directed at them or the others when they're getting together with families, or fears of being too alone in the holidays and not having the connections they want. So there can be an uptick at this time around the holidays, but also usually right after the summer too. People struggle with things in themselves sometimes when they're on vacations that they don't get to consciously fear or think about when they're working actively. Yeah, so as far as grief and mourning, absolutely. I work with all kinds of trauma and loss, and but there are losses at many different levels that may need to be mourned. And when somebody has a current loss, if it can open up um, other losses that haven't been grieved and mourned. And so it can sometimes feel extremely overwhelming. So, with a therapist, you can open this up in a way that it becomes tolerable. I say to people that the intolerable can become tolerable when you share it. And I work with mourning and grief, both in my monthly Saturday group where I do a meditative visualization where people go into their inner world and speak to those inside of them, and then speak through their gut and through their stomach and heart. And then they share with others in the group. So that can open up a lot of mourning process. But in individual therapy, it's with the therapist that you open up. So when you share and open up, it allows the intolerable to become tolerable, that can feel overwhelming otherwise, or too painful otherwise. And I mentioned before regret. I have one of my 7 books. I have some others coming out, but there's 7 published. One of them is on anatomy of regret. And regret is something that people sometimes think they shouldn't have regret. But actually, it's when people allow themselves to be conscious of their regrets that they don't get sabotaged by unconscious regrets, which cause them to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. If you don't consciously face what you're regretting, you don't learn from your regrets and your mistakes, and you can repeat it over and over. So I actually have a whole book about stories of people in case studies where they heal and grow and develop and self-integrate and move on to opening up capacity for love and creativity by being willing to consciously face regret as part of the mourning and loss process. So there's the grief about the actual loss, but there can be grief about one's own aggression, hurting the one loves. There are regrets that also can be part of a grieving process. And there's also one's anger and hostility and competitive feeling. All this can be part of a mourning process. It's not just simple sadness and loss. You can get to sadness and loss, but there are a lot of other things that can come up along the way or inhibit the surrendering to mourning and loss so that the grief process can proceed.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And what we do have to do is take a quick commercial break. So please, let's remind people how they can reach out to you. Do you want to share your website again, or phone number,
Yes.
social media pages? Any form of contact or all is perfect.
Okay, great. Yes, my email is dr for doctor, drkavaler @gmail.com. And that's really the best way to reach out to me. On my website, you can also go there to see a lot of interviews, and I have actually an example of what I go through in the meditative visualization process in my monthly Saturday group that's on the website. You can even try it out there. But there are lots of interviews I've had and articles and there that are there on the website. So that's www.kavaler.com. It's the same thing with Kavaler Adler without the hyphen in the website or the email.
Well, thank you so much. All right. Go ahead.
I can give my phone number too, but the email is probably the best way to reach me. My office number is 212-674-5425. And if someone leaves a message, I also will give people my phone also when I speak with them, if they email me. Yeah.
All right, will do. Stay tuned, everyone. We will be right back after this quick break. Please stay with us.
Are you struggling with knowing how to manage your health and weight? Do you need help planning your nutrition around your needs and goals? Hi, my name is Alec Moore, and I'm the founder of Nutrition Collaborative. We offer premium one-on-one nutrition and fitness coaching services. I help my clients learn the proper nutrition and fitness habits for their specific needs and goals. Contact me today on Instagram at Alec the Dietitian, and let's get you the help you need on your journey once and for all.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
My dad used to say that.
Sure, yeah. It's from Geico.
Yeah, whenever I would ask my dad for life advice, he'd sit me down and say, son, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. And look at me now, a well-adjusted adult with a drawer full of plastic bags I'll never use.
Okay, I'm confused. Was your dad a licensed Geico agent?
Nah, he was just a real good dad.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the mytuner-radio, online radio box, and simpleradio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are honored to have our friend and doctor with us, Dr. Susan Kavaler, Adler. Yeah, she's based out of New York City as a clinical psychologist, psychoanalytic psychotherapist. She's here helping so many. And by the way, you're working virtually, as you mentioned, right? You can do Zoom and perfect.
I have people from all over. I worked with someone in Scotland for years. I have in my monthly Saturday group, I have someone from England. I have someone in Hawaii. Yeah, I work online. Sometimes I also work on the phone, but I'm working much more that way these days as opposed to just in my Manhattan office. And so that makes it more convenient for everyone, and it allows me some flexibility. I did want to say something about blocks to creativity. I don't really have that much time to go into individual cases, but I did want to mention someone who I worked with in psychoanalysis for, she was a longer term patient. Of course, I have shorter and longer term work. And in 7 years intensive work, she went from being totally paralyzed about not being able to write to becoming very prolific writer and editor of her own work, and at first she couldn't even sit down to concentrate. But through the work we did, which involved a lot of the mourning process and involved dealing with different levels of trauma, she had an early abandonment trauma, and working with all that allowed her. And there can be a lot of rage and anger in the treatment, and that helps the person open up areas they were defending against, so that becoming freer of their defenses, that allows the creative process to open up and allows the person to find their own individual voice. So in this case, the woman was so paralyzed by fears of envy, fears that her mother, who was deceased, would attack her after her death. She had these fantasies of being retaliated against because her mother died from cancer in middle age and wasn't able to fulfill herself as an artist. So my patient was afraid to write herself and be successful. So there again, there's that fear of success combined with a fear of an envious attack. And she, of course, this all got resolved. Eventually, she said that she had much more gratitude now rather than guilt or persecutory anxiety about a fear of her mother's reaction if she was successful. In the end, she felt that her mother would have been happy for her to do well. But that came out, and there were so many different stages where she was able to sit down and concentrate, and then finally able to write more. And each time she got blocked, we had to deal with all these losses and the anger she was feeling and the fears of the enemy. As we dealt with it each time, she got to a point where she was writing prolifically short stories, which is what she wanted to write, and she started to publish and get awards for that. So, and as a writer, of course, I was also very deeply involved in her writing process and helping her. But I just wanted to mention someone specifically because I know we have very short time, but I do work with writing and creative blocks. And when you open the creativity and the inner voice, you also open up the capacity for love. So this person was able to enrich her relationship with her partner as well as she developed her writing form of creativity and other creative
which you also
talents.
are helping so many people still with writing as well. That's another one of your talents. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about that?
Right. Well, I work, of course, individually with consultations about people having working on helping them with what they want to write or helping them with what gets in the way of that, blocks, resistances, defenses that they need to surrender in order to write. And I do that individually, consulting on writing. I do it with this woman I mentioned in a fuller psychoanalytic situation, and there are different psychotherapy and psychoanalytic work that can be in-depth work for this. But I do it short-term or just one consultation on writing too. And I do a monthly writing group. And the people there share very deeply about themselves as they share their writing. And I facilitate that whole process. And of course, since I'm a very prolific writer myself, I can tune into all kinds of writing, and different people come in with, it can be short story fiction, it can be a journal article, it can be a book. Several people have published memoirs as well as scholarly books or poetry and a novel. So whatever, it could be just wanting to write for oneself too, even in journal writing. So it's open to helping people just see what they want to do as far as writing and creativity and what gets in the way of that. So yeah, I have that monthly writing group. I have a supervision group for people in my field, and I also have the monthly meditative visualization group where I deal with morning therapy and support. But all my groups are very supportive. The people are very empathic with each other and bond through the sharing that they do, and there's a lot of empathy and support in the group. So people get support for their writing, and they can go into places that they never thought they could do, and they were struggling with it on their own.
Well, thank you so much. And unfortunately, we are just about out of time. Pleasure having you here, getting to know you. I hope we get to connect again. If someone does want to reach out to you, also just curious, do you accept any insurance, or is it fully out of pocket, just so people are aware?
I don't accept any in-network insurance. If someone has out-of-network insurance, they need to pay me up front, but then I would give them what's called a super bill with the insurance codes, and they could submit that to get the partial reimbursement they're entitled to with out-of-network insurance. So people either just pay fully themselves, or they have out-of-network insurance that helps them get reimbursement that way.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much. All right. Remind us one more time how we can contact you, please. Thank you.
Should I say it again?
Sure, please. Thank you.
Yeah. drkavalerradler@gmail.com. It's great to reach out to me through email. I respond very readily. And my website is, again, with my last name without the hyphen, KavalerAdler.com, KAVALERADLER.com.
Okay. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here, getting to know you, and looking forward to the next time we get to connect. You have a great day, okay?
Thank you. I do have one question for you after
Sure.
the end.
You got it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more. Please stay with us. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.